Dark chosen ones, you have this power to break the curse of manipulation matrix. I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself something not many dare to ask. What if everything I've ever believed about power, control, and identity was a lie? You and I, we've been born into a system, not just a system of governments, money, or religion. No, this goes far deeper. We're talking about a matrix, a web of energetic manipulation, subtle psychological programming, generational karma, and spiritual contracts signed before birth. And within this entangled matrix, there are those of us who were marked, not cursed, but chosen. Not chosen by the light, but chosen through the dark. We are the dark chosen ones. Now, before your mind connects dark with evil, I need you to unlearn that. The darkness I speak of is not the kind that seeks destruction. It's the kind that's forged in suffering, in chaos, in silence, where the seed of true power begins to awaken. It's the realm of the subconscious, the hidden, the intuitive, the raw. The dark chosen ones are not villains in this story. We are the alchemists of pain. We are the ones who walk into the void, not to be consumed by it, but to learn its language and transmute its energy into wisdom, into light.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You've always felt it, haven't you? That deep sense that something was off about the world. That people are sleepwalking, repeating patterns with no idea why. That institutions feel hollow. That your dreams carry messages you can't explain. That you are somehow connected to something ancient, something powerful, but also estranged from it. That's not paranoia. That's your soul knocking. That's the matrix glitching every time your awareness pierces through its veil. Look around. The manipulation matrix isn't just a metaphor. It's a multi-layered, energetic construct built to harvest your attention, your energy, your belief. Schools that teach obedience, not wisdom. Media that sells fear, not truth. Relationships that mirror trauma instead of soul alignment. Even your thoughts, yes, many of the thoughts in your head were implanted through repetition, culture, and trauma bonding. You've been programmed to think small, to doubt your intuition, to fear your power. But here's the secret. If the matrix works so hard to suppress you, it's because it fears you. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are dangerous to the system because you carry within you the blueprint of liberation. But here's the catch: your power cannot be activated through comfort. It awakens through pressure, through contrast, through collapse. That's why so many dark chosen ones go through betrayal, abandonment, spiritual isolation, and even mental breakdowns. Because the matrix needs to break your spirit before you realize you were never meant to follow, it was always your destiny to lead. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you're living multiple lives at once? Like one version of you is doing the mundane, daily routines, working, surviving, coping, while another version of you stands behind the curtain, watching, waiting, whispering, "This is not all there is." That's your shadow self. That's your higher self in camouflage, camouflaged because if it revealed itself too soon, the matrix would attack it through fear, shame, or ridicule. But now, that version is stirring. That version is watching you watch this. And it's asking, are you ready to remember? But what does it mean truly to be a dark chosen one? It means you were born into karmic complexity. You inherited ancestral wounds, toxic family patterns, and spiritual debts, not because you were weak, but because you were strong enough to end them. You were sent here as a spiritual hacker, as a codebreaker. Your very awakening sends ripples through the matrix. Every time you choose consciousness over reaction, intuition over logic, alignment over approval, you tear a hole in the veil. And yet, this journey is not glamorous. It's not filled with Instagram quotes and crystal baths. No, it's gritty. It's lonely. It's terrifying, because the manipulation matrix doesn't just control systems, it invades your mind. It whispers doubt. It distorts time. It makes you question your worth. It covers the truth in fog. And it uses your trauma as a leash, pulling you back every time you try to ascend. But here's the truth they never wanted you to know. Your trauma is not your prison, it's your initiation. You see, there's a sacred technology embedded in your suffering. Every time you've been betrayed, you were being taught discernment. Every time you were silenced, you were being trained in telepathy. Every time you were isolated, your aura was being cleansed of false attachments. The darkness didn't come to destroy you, it came to refine you. You were being forged like a sword in the fire of adversity. And now, the blade is almost ready. But beware, this power doesn't come without responsibility. The matrix feeds on unconsciousness. The moment you become awake, you become a threat. And that's when the real attacks begin, not with guns or violence, but with subtle sabotage. The wrong partner entering your life. A job that drains your soul. Addictions disguised as comfort. Even your own ego whispering that you're crazy, that you're imagining things. But listen closely, when the attacks intensify, it's not because you're failing, it's because you're ascending. So what must you do? First, reclaim your story, rewrite it, stop identifying as the victim. You are not damaged goods. You are a master in disguise. You chose this path before birth. You signed up to enter this matrix, to forget your power and to remember it through contrast. And every time you remember, you activate others. That's the real secret. Your awakening is not just for you. It's a signal, a frequency, a call to arms for other dark chosen ones to rise. Next, cleanse your field, not just with sage or crystals, but with truth. Speak what scares you. Feel what you've suppressed. Face what you've avoided. The matrix thrives on your denial. But when you bring awareness to your shadows, they lose their grip. Your awareness is a sword. Use it. And finally, trust your inner knowing. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. The synchronicities, the dreams, the gut feelings, they're real. They are breadcrumbs from your higher self, guiding you through the maze. Follow them, even when it doesn't make logical sense. Especially then, because your mind was trained by the matrix, but your soul remembers the map. So now I ask you, if you truly are a dark chosen one, what will you do with this information? Will you go back to sleep, or will you rise, even when it costs you everything you thought you were? The secret weapon of the shadow self, how to use darkness as a tool of liberation. There is a secret most people spend lifetimes avoiding, and that is this: your shadow is not your enemy. It is your greatest weapon. The manipulation matrix has done everything in its power to make you fear your own darkness. It has trained you to suppress your anger, hide your shame, ignore your grief, and pretend your wounds don't exist. Why? Because your shadow is where your true power lives. It's where your raw, unfiltered essence resides, untamed, unmanipulated, and unafraid. And if you truly want to break the curse of the matrix, you must stop running from your shadow and start listening to it. You see, the shadow self is not just a psychological concept. It is a spiritual initiation. It is the keeper of everything you've disowned to survive in a world built on illusion. Every time you were told to be nice, don't make waves, don't cry, don't trust your instincts, you buried a piece of yourself in the dark. But those pieces didn't die. They became your shadow. And now they wait. They wait for the moment you are brave enough to look them in the eyes and say, I see you. I'm ready. But here's the paradox: the shadow will not be integrated through force or denial. It must be approached with reverence. You must sit with your rage and ask what it's protecting. You must hold your shame like a sacred child and ask who taught you to believe you were unworthy. You must meet your jealousy, your fear, your guilt not as enemies but as messengers, because they are. They carry the codes of your freedom, and once you stop judging them, they begin to speak. For example, your anger, yes. That fire you've been taught to suppress is not a malfunction. It is a signal. It tells you where your boundaries have been violated. It tells you where you've been silenced, where your power has been stolen. If you listen to it, not lash out, but listen, it sharpens your intuition like a blade. It teaches you where to say no and when to walk away. It teaches you how to protect your energy like a sacred temple. That is not darkness meant to be feared. That is divine wisdom disguised as fire. Or take your grief, the heartbreak, the losses, the betrayals that shattered you. You were told to move on, to stay strong, to hide your tears. But grief is not weakness. It is the soul's way of shedding the false. It is the alchemical process of releasing what no longer serves your evolution. When you grieve fully, without resistance, your heart opens. You become more whole, not less. You become more compassionate, more fierce, more real. That, too, is power. The Matrix wants you fragmented. It wants you disconnected from your shadow because a fragmented soul is easy to control. It makes you chase validation, success, love, all outside yourself. It keeps you locked in loops of self-doubt and spiritual bypassing. But when you reclaim your shadow, you become whole. And a whole being cannot be manipulated. A whole being becomes a mirror that shatters illusions. Let me ask you something. What part of yourself have you been most afraid to face? What emotion makes you recoil, makes you numb, makes you run? That is your portal. That is your access point to the deepest liberation. The more you run from it, the more it controls you. But when you turn and face it, when you breathe into it, when you own it, it transforms. It becomes your ally. I'm not saying this is easy. Shadow work is not a weekend retreat. It's not a trendy buzzword. It is sacred warfare. It is the kind of inner battle that strips you to your bones and then shows you the gold hidden underneath. It requires honesty, radical responsibility, and an unshakable devotion to truth. But once you begin, you'll never go back, because you'll realize the shadow was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to wake you up. And when you integrate your shadow, something miraculous happens. You begin to see through people's masks. You stop being fooled by charm or titles or surface-level light. You see the games. You see the projections. You see the manipulation matrix for what it truly is, a fear-based illusion sustained by unconscious agreement. And suddenly you are no longer food for the system. You become a frequency disruptor. You walk into rooms and shift the energy. You speak truth and illusions tremble. You become sovereign. That's what the Matrix fears the most, not rebellion, not rage, but wholeness. A being who has integrated both light and dark cannot be controlled. They are unpredictable. They are magnetic. They are free. And that is who you are becoming. The Matrix's greatest fear is your authentic frequency. There's something so subtle, so profound, yet terrifyingly powerful, that the manipulation matrix cannot stand against it. It isn't your intellect. It isn't your hustle. It isn't even your rebellion. It's your authentic frequency. That raw, unfiltered vibration of your soul when you stop performing, stop pretending, and start being. We've been so conditioned to believe that power lies in external achievement, status, money, influence, but the truth is, those are just shadows of a deeper force. Your authentic frequency is the energetic signature of your aligned self, and when you begin to live from that space, you become untouchable. You become unprogrammable. Why does the Matrix fear this so much? Because authenticity is contagious. It's a frequency that cannot be faked. It bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the soul. And once someone feels it, they can't unfeel it. It wakes something up in them. It stirs the remembrance of who they really are. And that's how the matrix begins to collapse, not with violence, but with mass remembrance. When enough people remember who they are beneath the conditioning, the whole illusion begins to crumble. But stepping into your authentic frequency is no small feat. It requires you to strip away layers of false identity roles, personas, coping mechanisms, and masks you've worn just to survive. It requires you to confront the terrifying question, who am I if I'm not what they told me to be? That question alone can unravel lifetimes of programming. Because the truth is, you were never meant to fit in. You were designed to disrupt. You were not born to be liked, you were born to be real. Ask yourself, how many times have you silenced your truth to keep the peace? How many times have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? How many moments of inner knowing have you betrayed just to be accepted by a world that doesn't even know itself? Every time you do that, you distort your frequency. You tune into a version of reality that isn't yours. And then you wonder why you feel lost, anxious, disconnected. That's not mental illness. That's spiritual starvation. The matrix thrives on inauthenticity. It rewards masks and punishes truth. It teaches you to conform, to perform, to edit yourself into oblivion. But here's the divine irony. The moment you stop trying to be anything other than you, the universe begins to rearrange itself around your truth. Opportunities shift. People fall away. Your vibration becomes a filter, and only what resonates can stay. This is not magic. It's physics. Frequency doesn't lie. And that's when the matrix panics. Because a human who lives from their authentic frequency cannot be manipulated. You can't sell fear to someone who knows their soul is eternal. You can't shame someone who has embraced their shadow. You can't control someone who listens to their intuition over authority. These people become walking codes of freedom, living reminders that another way is possible. And it terrifies the system. This is why the dark chosen ones are so important. We were never meant to be the polished spiritual influencers or the peaceful monks on mountaintops. We were born in the fire, shaped by trauma, forged in silence. Our authenticity is not pretty, but it is pure. It is messy, raw, unfiltered, and real. And that's what makes it powerful. The world doesn't need more perfection. It needs truth. It needs people brave enough to live without the mask. But authenticity comes with a price. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people. You will be called too much, too intense, too strange. That's okay. Let them go. The path of authenticity is not for the masses, it is for the free. And every time you choose your truth over approval, your soul expands. Every time you say what you mean, even when your voice shakes, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose alignment over validation, you become more whole. So here's the question I leave with you now. What would your life look like if you stopped pretending? If you stopped filtering your truth to avoid rejection? If you stopped negotiating your soul for comfort? What if authenticity wasn't a goal, but your natural state buried under layers of fear, waiting to be remembered? You don't need to force anything. You don't need to fix yourself. You only need to remember. Remember who you were before they told you who to be. Remember the child who knew magic was real, who trusted their feelings, who spoke to the stars. That child still lives in you. They are your compass. They are your key. And when you begin to live from that essence, your frequency begins to crack the code of the matrix. You become a walking disruption, a living transmission. You speak and others awaken. You move and energy shifts. You exist and illusions collapse. This is your power. This is your responsibility. And this is why you were chosen. The final initiation rise as the matrix breaker you were born to be. Now we arrive at the threshold, the place where everything you've learned, felt, and remembered begins to crystallize into action. This is the final initiation, not the end of your journey, but the beginning of your true life outside the manipulation matrix. If you've made it this far, it means your soul is ready. ready to not just understand, but to embody, ready to stop consuming truth and start becoming truth. This is where the dark chosen ones either rise or retreat. And I ask you, will you rise? The matrix is not going to vanish overnight. It will not politely step aside as you awaken. In fact, the moment you begin to embody your authentic frequency, integrate your shadow, and reclaim your power, the system will push back harder. It will test you. It will send doubts, distractions, even crises. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something right. These aren't punishments. They're thresholds. Initiations. Each one asking, will you choose your old self or your sovereign self? And here's where many turn back. Because this path demands the death of your false identity. It demands the release of everything you clung to for safety, people, beliefs, routines, even dreams that were built on survival, not alignment. You must be willing to burn, not in pain, but in purification. The old you cannot walk into the new timeline. The ego will scream. The fear will rise. But underneath it all, your soul will whisper, keep going. This is the sacred death, the ego death. And it's terrifying, yes, but also liberating. Because once you die to the illusion, you finally begin to live in the truth. You realize that freedom was never outside you. It was never in the system, the status, or the approval. It was always found in your willingness to let go of what you're not, so you can remember who you are. And who you are is not fragile. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are a cosmic being in a human experience. A soul encoded with ancient memory. A matrix breaker in disguise. You were never meant to just survive here. You were meant to shift the collective. Every truth you speak, every boundary you hold, every fear you transmute sends out a frequency that others feel. You don't even need to try. Your energy does the work. This is not about preaching. This is about being. The more you embody your truth, the more you give others permission to do the same. And that, right there, is how the matrix falls. But don't wait for the world to change. Don't wait for someone to save you. The age of external saviors is over. You are the one you've been waiting for. You are the guide, the healer, the warrior, the mystic. You've walked through fire. You've stared into the abyss. You've broken generational cycles with your bare hands. You've cried in silence and still chose to rise. That is not weakness. That is divine strength. That is the mark of the dark chosen one. So now the question becomes, what will you build with your freedom? What frequencies will you emit? What realities will you create? Because the true matrix breakers are not just rebels, they are creators. They don't just destroy illusions, they birth new worlds. You must learn to wield your power not just in resistance, but in vision. You must dare to dream outside the programming, love outside the conditioning, lead outside the system. That is the real revolution. And as you walk this path, remember you are never alone. There are others like you, scattered across the world. Some are silent, some are loud. Some are in the spotlight, others hidden in plain sight. But we are connected through frequency, through the coded knowing in our bones, through the fire in our blood, through the silence that speaks louder than words. We are the dark chosen ones. We came here not to follow, but to lead, not to obey, but to awaken, not to escape the matrix, but to dismantle it from within. So rise, speak, create. Trust. The time of hiding is over. The time of playing small is past. The world is starving for realness, for depth, for soul. And you are the medicine, the miracle, the signal in the noise, the storm and the stillness. The final initiation is not a ceremony. It is a choice, a moment. And that moment is now. Will you rise?